Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. And I've got to tell you, it's a real red letter day for In the Funnel today, because today's guest is Sandro Verrelli from the Canadian Professional Sales Association. And I'm going to introduce Sandro in a few minutes, but I'm just tremendously excited to have Sandro as a guest here today. So team, as always with our webinars, the intent of the next hour is to share some strategies and some processes, and with Sandro, vision and best practices that you can apply to your business and your industry today. That's the only objective of our webinars. And as always, the format for helping you with that is going to be twofold today. We'll use a little PowerPoint here at the beginning as kind of a discussion guide, but pretty quickly, Sandro and I are going to get into a conversation, but you can weigh in on the conversation as well. So critical today, we're really looking for your feedback and your input. And the way we're going to do that, folks, is I'm going to invite you to log on to menti.com with your mobile device. Couldn't be simpler. And what you're going to do is put the code at the bottom of this page, 2362-3174. I'm going to leave that up just for a second. Just look to the bottom of the slide here, but menti.com and input the code. And what that's going to enable, gang, for today, we're going to be able to ask questions in real time, survey questions. You're going to be able to respond, and we'll see it in real time on the screen. And by the way, one of the reasons we do that, folks, is we constantly hear from the In the Funnel webinars that people get a lot of value out of understanding what their peers and associates in this business discipline are doing. You want to hear from each other. You want to understand how other folks in professional sales are doing. So please do log into menti.com. And again, just to input that code at the bottom. And as we get into this in a few minutes' time, we'll revisit the Menti credentials. So folks, one of the reasons I always like sharing that really was the cause of In the Funnel as a business, we know that 39% of the time, a business-to-business purchasing decision favors the company that sells better. A B2B purchasing decision favors that company that sells better. And this was research, by the way, that was published in July 2012, Harvard Business Review. The research was actually done by a group called the Challey Group. So they had a wonderful sample size, 100,000 different data points, and they were able to definitively identify how often, a successful B2B purchasing decision favored the company that sold better versus the company that had the best price or quality or service features. So as a starting point today, we'd like to share with you, whether you're a CEO, a sales leader, or a sales professional, I'm going to take 3 minutes here and share what we believe is required to sell better. What does selling better really mean? The first thing, gang, when we start to think about building our go-to-market plan or our sales playbook is value proposition messaging. Everybody out there is going to communicate to your customers and prospects multiple times every day, and you need to communicate the value proposition for you and your business and your industry. And it's really kind of this three-legged stool where you try and capture what do you do, and then how does what you do tie to their desired business outcome? That's the most important. What do you do for them? And then finally, the third leg of the stool, what's unique and different about you given there are other options in the marketplace? So competitive differentiation is probably something most of us don't spend enough time on, because competitive differentiation's got to be part of your value prop, but it has to be a fact. And it has to be relative to competitors, but relevant to your actual prospect. So if you're a CEO or a sales leader, the best thing you can do right now, teach your team how to communicate the value proposition messaging for you and your business in your industry. They're going to use it in every conversation they're in, whether they're starting sales cycles, progressing them, or ending them. Team, once we've got this, once we can actually communicate the value proposition messaging, we then have to prioritize the pursuit of our target market. We have to decide where are we going to take it, to get out there and try and build pipeline. And that starts by identifying your ideal customer profile. Who is the perfect client for you and your business and your industry? Who do you want? And then where are we going to go to actually build pipeline? I can do that first by growing share of wallet from my current client base. And secondly, I'm going to prioritize my pursuit of new logos or folks not doing business with us today. So X factor professional sales, by the way, most companies don't grow with enough new business. They're riding on their current customer base and growing very little with new logos. So you've got to focus on that. And that's the next step of the process, demand generation. What they used to call cold calling 30 years ago. It's not cold anymore. There's strategies, processes, and tools to enable you to do this effectively. Very, very difficult thing to do. And probably 75% of all the salespeople, the thousands that we've either trained or worked with or come across in our career, 75% of them are probably account managers because that demand generation is so difficult. But if we do these first three elements well, gang, the first three chevrons, as my marketing team likes to call them, then we have to actually execute better than the next after we've got a qualified sales cycle in front of us. And that means understanding, things like a sales process and how it interacts with our buyer's journey, because it's all about them. We need to understand the difference between a sales process and sales strategy. Sales process, steps to complete a sale for your business on your end, from your perspective. Sales strategy, your game plan to progress along each of those steps successfully. Two uniquely different things. And of course, we've got to look at both those things through the buyer's lens, because the buyer journey is more important than our sales process. And then we're going to know about things as we go along our process. We know it's not going to be perfectly smooth, so we have to think about handling obvious resistance or objections as they come up. And of course, in this day and age, we've got to figure out, how do we do this? Because even now, as things open up, we're still not going to be in front of as many clients and prospects face to face as we would like. Some parts of professional sales have changed forever. So these are the core tenets of the sales playbook. And these are the things you need to think about if you're a salesperson in the field today, or if you're a sales leader trying to manage a team, tough thing to do these days, or the CEO of a business trying to create that playbook for the entire business. These are the elements most important. But we talked about profession, sales as a profession. One of the best entrepreneurs in Canada, business people in Canada ever, is a guy named Jerry Pond. Look at the businesses he's started and sold and the money that's been made. It's interesting. He says sales is a professional skill, and we're not growing a nation of salespeople, at least in Canada. That's why this next organization is so critical for all of us to think about. So we think about a profession. What's a profession? According to Oxford, and I'm certainly no smart guy, but according to Oxford, paid occupation, especially one that involves prolonged training in formal qualification, or a vocation founded upon specialized education training for the purposes of which to supply objective counsel. We're going to come back to that. Objective counsel, helping the clients and prospects that we're going to work with. So sales as a profession, and that was really the topic of today. And I've got to say, gang, I was just incredibly excited to get the next guest to come and join our webinar today. And here's why. Certain people you're going to come across in your professional career, particularly in sales, will inspire you. And on a few meetings with Sandro Verrelli, it didn't take long for you to figure out he's an inspirational leader. And as leader of the Canadian Professional Sales Association, which we're going to learn about today, they convert the profession of sales into a profession. They have formal certification, as it said with profession, for salespeople in Canada. One of the things I love about Sandro, one of the things that really resonated, we're always thinking, what's the mission of our company? And we'd always been there about thinking about, we want to increase the performance and the professionalism of B2B sales. Sandro just simplified everything by saying, hey, we just want to improve the lives of professional salespeople. What a mission. As soon as we heard that in the funnel, we knew we had to develop a stronger partnership with the Canadian Professional Sales Association, which is what we've done. But I'd like to welcome, going to find Sandro, and we're going to welcome him here to the webinar here today. And Sandro, first of all, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Holy smoke, Mark, what an incredible introduction. Load me up. I am truly humbled. And here's the thing, we recognize that this is a privilege for us, for me in particular, and for all of us at CPSA, to be with you and with our guests in this webinar. And so it's with great thanks and gratitude that we express, our commitments to your success and the success of sales professionals right across Canada. So tip of the cap, and thank you for having us aboard.
Oh, fantastic, Sandro. So let's start just at the beginning. What's the CPSA, Sandro? Tell us a little about the Canadian Professional Sales Association.
Well, thank you for asking that. So for as long as sales has existed in Canada, the organization, CPSA, has been there to support and advance sales professionals with resources and training and benefits that improve and accelerate success, right? And so over the years, we've essentially transformed the industry, right? And that includes bringing in rigorous standards of excellence, ethical guidelines, and recognition programs that really elevate, the esteem of the profession and really professionalizing our craft, our vocation, setting the bar for excellence and supporting professionals regardless of whatever stage of their career that they're presently in. Now, we also recognize that as the industry association, we're at an inflection point, right? And I think we're going to spend some time talking about that, right? And what the last 16 months has represented in the way of eye-opening learning, right? And I think one of the things that Mark and I talked about in, just kind of putting together our thoughts for this meeting today was we're gonna riff on it. We're not gonna be like overly prepared, but we're gonna react to what we're learning and certainly let our conviction take us to the right signals. Yeah. So.
Well, boy, when you start to think of the association and your approach to it, Sandro, I've really been impressed with the whole team since you've taken over the organization. What are you guys seeing out there these days with salespeople? We're going to look to the group here in a moment. You're going to share with us how you're feeling. But what are you seeing within your community these days, Sandro? What's happening with professional sales out in your community?
Well, I think a lot of us bring us to this conversation today seeking the same things, right? And that is, to be equipped to lean into, to face into the new economy, right? What has emerged over the last 16 months, an unprecedented economic challenge. Not for every industry. I mean, some are absolutely, hair straight back, can't keep up. And other organizations have been languishing. And therefore, I think, there's a lot of us that are kind of seeking, how do we equip ourselves and the teams that we support and lead to face into that new economy and see it as an opportunity versus, what would have been a challenge, a headwind.
Well, you know what, moving forward, if you could remove any references to hair being slicked back, for obvious reasons, those don't resonate as much with the team at In the Funnel. Everybody on my team is smiling and laughing right now.
I should have known better. Mark, I'm like an hour fresh off of my second shot. So if I misspeak, if I'm a little loopy, it's the Pfizer speaking. It's not me.
Oh, hey, so glad you got your second shot, by the way. That's great. So it's funny you mentioned that, one of the things, we talked about this unprecedented change over the last 18 months. There's a couple of different organizations that keep surveying sales leaders and then even CEOs of medium and small business. And one of the things that sales leaders, which I have so much empathy for, are constantly challenged by is the pull of these unreal stakeholders. When you think of a sales leader, I've always said, I think it's the hardest job on the executive team, and I've seen multiple jobs on the executive team and been in them, because I think the sales leader today has got, the most important stakeholder out there, which is the customer. So they're always interacting with clients. They've got the rest of their executive team and the CEO that they're reporting to. So critical stakeholder. And then they've got this really, really important gang, which is the sales team. So their three stakeholders, you think of the drain on their time and the challenges they've got to face. And
Mark, the greatest leadership challenge of a generation, if not beyond.
Yeah.
Right. The playbooks that were somewhat effective have been rendered literally useless with this low to no touch, environment, this format that we're having to, again, lean into. So I couldn't agree more. I think, and this is an underserved part of our community, quite frankly, is sales leadership and the impact we have on literally thousands of practitioners.
Oh, yeah. What a great way of looking at it too, where the challenge of that sales leader's role is their impact on the team. On average, by the way, they're saying the team is 8 people, 9 people these days, but the impact they have on the community is so significant because, unfortunately, in our line of sight, what we see a lot of is someone almost accidentally falls into a career in sales. And so those first couple of years are so critical. And we know churn is very high right now in sales. We'll talk about that. But these folks who are getting introduced to it, if they're not getting the guidance, if they're not getting the coaching, if they're not getting the leadership, they will leave the business discipline with the wrong taste in their mouth. So first of all, it's not good for the discipline of professional sales. But the one thing that always gets me is think of the importance of your first professional job as a young person. It is so important that you succeed. And to leave that first professional job where you're walking away without success behind you, I think the impact on self-esteem and confidence and all those other things, that just unbelievably crippling, in certain cases. So there's this responsibility, frankly, that as we're bringing so many, fantastic young professionals into this profession, we have to set up the environment to enable them to succeed. So there's a huge amount of responsibility on that sales leader's shoulders. And then she's also got to worry about this crazy cadence of hitting the quarterly number, which we all live with, right? No one gets away from that. There's nowhere to run. So it's a particularly tough role out there these days, I think, for sales leaders. I'm highly empathetic toward them.
Well, on that note, Mark, just to elaborate a little bit further, when we think about points of leverage, there is literally no kind of greater opportunity to impact and influence the success of an organization, particularly a growth-oriented organization, than to equip its sales leaders, not only with the act of upskilling and helping nurture the team through and adapt to and thrive in the new economy.
Yes.
But also in terms of, their role as catalysts of growth by bringing talent to the organization, right? And so you got to imagine research, pretty big deal for an industry association. So we generate a ton of it, and we want to make it available to our membership because we certainly, and the professional world, we certainly see the benefit of situational awareness, particularly at a pivotal time in our industry. What I'll say is, the selling profession, it ranks in the top 5 most in-demand jobs in Canada, right? And it's the second toughest role to actually fill, right? So you've got organizations that have ambitions for growth. In fact, 3 out of 75% of Canadian organizations have ambitions to achieve high growth rates, and yet, the majority are actually struggling on filling roles and vacancies. And then, when roles are filled, onboarding and retaining your top talent, recognizing them, equipping them to be awesome in the new economy, like not an easy get. So therefore, that just underscores the challenge to sales leaders, greatest leverage for how an organization performs, and yet, again, just underserved, right? And so we actually intend to do something about that.
We're going to come back to what we're doing about that, what the CPSA is doing about that. Why do you think it is so hard to fill sales jobs? Why is that? Why is it so tough to find the right people right now, in your view?
Yeah, I think I'll just react to it. Again, I'm I will declare right now, like I love the work you're doing because you're an educator. I'm not. I'm a connector, right? So I'm not going to pretend to be an educator. I play one on TV, but that's as far as it goes. But what I'll react to that by just sharing with you that I think there's a number of things. Like, and I saw, a comment pop up, in the chat where it's like it's probably the most misunderstood, vocation.
Yeah.
Because from the outside looking in. And I think it's because it's the beauty of this intersection between the sciences and the humanities. When we think about the act of, top performing sales professionals, data, analytics, economics, finance meets the arts, language, psychology. And so it's this with this broad kind of discipline base that I think naturally it's going to be somewhat, there'll be some mystique to it. Therefore, there's been stigmas, old-fashioned stigmas. I think there's been, a misunderstanding in terms of how sales can actually create a very, very meaningful kind of way to, to put bread on the table, as it were.
Yeah.
And so, when I reflect on our first conversation, Mark, when you shared with me your philosophy around sales being the world's most important business discipline. That idea rocked me, frankly. And it's so absolutely love the conviction and passion.
Oh, thanks.
And in my mind, like we have to work together in terms of making this more widely understood.
Same way.
Because the thing is, aside from recognizing that. When a sale is made well, that really is the catalyst for progress and for better outcomes for those engaged. Like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I've been doing this for a long time, and that impact in terms of recognizing, finally defining, it was a moment of clarity for me, and I was beyond inspired. So recognizing we absolutely represent the world's most important business discipline, the point of leverage that sales professionals can have on the organizations they serve and the communities in which we live and work in, it's immense. The impact is immense.
Well, but by the way, Sandra, thanks so much for sharing that. It's so great you remembered that. And our first conversation, I felt the same way. I felt we'd been chasing this vision for a while, and I just thought you captured the vision so much better than we ever have in the 8 years we've been doing this, where you said, hey, we want to improve the lives of salespeople. And I'm no smart guy, but I definitely love going to, the research in Canada. There's, 1.2 million salespeople, professional salespeople with sales in their title. In the US, it's 1 in 9 people are in a professional sales job with sales in their title. So what that means is anybody out there, and we have a lot of professional services folks who come on our webinars. Hi, folks. Lawyers, consultants, small business people, they're all selling, but they do not have sales in their title. They'll avoid the title or business development. But if you want to get to the top of most of these folks are a Canadian law firm. The way you get there is driving the most revenue.
100%.
It's not the smartest lady. It's not the smartest guy. It's actually the one who brings in the most clients. So it's funny you talked about this historical view of the profession. Admittedly, I had that view when I fell into this profession 30 years ago or 25 years ago. And, it felt like I could fall into it. I had a fantastic role selling technology for a photocopy company in the early 90s. Amazing training, incredible support. Yet that stigma, I couldn't shake.
What was sorry, Mark, we're going off script here. Not that we have a script. In fact,
let's find the script and then we can go off it. I don't know where I put the script, but when we find it, we'll then go off it.
I'm aching to know this because I know that you're like a very well accomplished executive sales leader, have been for
thanks.
Forgive me for saying this, decades.
Yeah.
But what was your first gig?
First gig, to be honest, was right out of university. I got brought on by a student franchise painting company that still exists today called Student Works Painting. And so for a couple of summers, all I do is run a painting company And the training was unbelievable because originally one of the leaders had been from IBM. So your ability to sell a paint job, by the way, I've closed large transactions. And to this day, extracting $5,000 out of a homeowner to paint their living room and dining room continues to be one of the hardest sales I've ever made. I've done $1 billion deal. That was harder. So taking from somebody's wallet, but the training was amazing. And then when I went to my first corporate job, the only skills HR people could assess, they couldn't understand what an entrepreneur did, but they could smell sales skills. So I got a job selling photocopiers for Kodak. Kodak used to compete with Xerox selling photocopiers in the early 90s. And here's what happened. You got hired, you had 4 weeks of training in Canada, you then got shipped down to 6 weeks of training in the US. And every day, the underperformers got tapped on the shoulder because it was a marketing education university, basically, in Rochester. And they'd send, there was 80 of us being trained at the same time. I think maybe 67, 68 graduated. So over 6 weeks, if you weren't cutting it, they just sent you home. But it was almost,
they could smell it.
No, you were getting tested every week.
I know you're saying they could smell it. And I'm like, if sales had a smell, what would that smell be?
Oh, you mean the HR people?
Yeah.
They had their little checklist, and if you were friendly and personable, I guess.
I'm thinking cinnamon myself, but anyways, carry on.
But that was it. That was the starting point. And to be honest with you, it was such a fantastic job. And the support was amazing, but really, I would still be as a young person out there today, I'd be explaining what I did at a cocktail party, and my pal beside me would be articling for a law firm. This pal would be junior at an investment bank. And I felt like the poor second cousin because of what was in my head. I didn't understand things. And it was only after one company was great enough to put me through an MBA while I was doing some things. And then I came back and they said, literally, you can do anything you want. And I said, I'm doing what I want. This is more important. It was only once I went and got a little bit of that I realized every business case you review, the quick fix is get some more revenue. More revenue fixes everything.
100%.
But it took a long time for that to sink in with me, to be honest, Sandro. I'm certainly there now.
I think the lesson for me is it's not just the book smarts, right? It's the book smarts meets the hustle. And I don't know if I'm in your shoes, I would exchange that experience for anything. I think you've got the context.
No, I wouldn't change for anything. And you know what I'd like to do, Sandro? One of the things I want to do is I want to hear from the gang on the webinar. So folks, we're going to jump to Mentimeter. And when we circle back, I'm going to ask Sandro, let's talk a little bit about some of the core trends we're seeing right now. I like to think about what defines profession as far as the CPSA is concerned. So how do we certify sales leaders or salespeople? But Neil, if you're out there in the abyss, sir, I wonder if you could pull up our Mentimeter questions. And folks on the webinar, thank you so much. I'm going to invite you to go to menti.com on your cell phone. By the way, the chats have been so gracious and so many people are calling out positive things about the CPSA, about the work that Sandro's doing. So thank you for that.
Yes.
But if we could please go to menti.com, and the code will be at the top of every slide. So you only have to punch in 2362-3174. I had to read that. 2362-3174. And then you'll be able to jump in with these questions. And Neil, if you can fire the first question, let's just figure out who we've got here today. What's my role? I'm a sales leader, I'm a salesperson, or an account executive, or I'm a sales development rep or business development rep. And by the way, team, thanks everybody for logging on to Menti. The more people who respond, the more valuable the inputs are to you. And we will make these available. We post these on LinkedIn, so we'll make them available to you. Okay, so let's everybody keep logging in, please, and thank you to that. Okay, so let's have a look here. How are we doing, team, in 2021? Sandro talked about some companies knocking the ball out of the park, others having a challenging time. how are you doing against your goals or quota for 2021? Are we beating them? Are we just meeting them? Are we a little below? Or are we a lot below? How are we doing for our quota? Interesting stat, by the way, team, Sandro. Unbelievably to me anyway, retail grew 6%, north of 6% in 2020. Retail grew. So it wasn't cosmetics, wasn't fashion, but retail actually grew in that unique situation. So look at the split here, which is, kind of interesting. Does sort of align generally with the industry norms. The industry norms, by the way, are about 42, 43% of salespeople hit quota every year. We're meeting or beating for the first half of 2021. We're doing better than that based on the gang here. Yeah. So thank you everybody for weighing in, but that's great to see.
Do you know what else, Mark? Sorry.
Yeah, please.
If you don't mind, I think what occurs to me is what else changed. So we know that retail had a nice bump. What also changed, probably more at an accelerated pace, was the shift in preferences on how purchasing is done. Right. So the adoption of virtual, means of either assessing and evaluating choices available. Right. Information required to, determine, A or B, left or right. But just those preferences over the last 16 months in terms of, we talk a lot about how selling has changed. What has dramatically changed is how buying is done.
Interesting. Was that the McKinsey research?
That was one point of evidence suggesting, there's a number of pieces that we're looking at and have looked at that lead us to believe that buying has changed almost more than selling. Quite frankly, the nature of sales and connecting and problem solving and diagnostics, that's changed, quite frankly, less. It's the methods, the technologies, the tech stack, the ways that we reach out, and the role that we play as sales professionals in the buying journey has shifted a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's why. And while we're doing this, Neil, I wonder if you could skip the next question. I'd like to go to this question about stress. But one of the things I find very interesting, Sandro, is really for 10 years, the tech stack has been just exploding exponentially, from how to find clients to how to engage them, to the technologies to engage them, to analyzing what takes place on a sales call, translating the number of questions I ask, how much am I speaking, all of that, where you think would be so helpful to improve sales performance, but yet sales performance generally is declining. Generally, sales performance is declining. So that number I shared in terms of the 42% in terms of achievement rate for quota, that's down. Okay, usually it had been high 40s. The other thing that's really unique is it used to be 22% of deals went to no decision. Now it's 38% of deals go to no decision, meaning I didn't lose to a competitor. None of us actually painted a better picture of the future to that client or prospect, so they make no decision whatsoever.
Mark, do you have a hypothesis?
I do, actually. So can we come back to that? Actually, my hypothesis is directly tied to exactly why your organization is so important. So when we circle back after these questions, I'd like you to ask me that question again, because I think this is why we need the CPSA so badly. How about this one, team? And I want everyone to see this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, my level of stress, and thank you everybody for weighing in, 6.9. So 6.9 out of 10, my level of stress is 6.9, and we're in July. If ever there should have been a drop, it should be taking place after the Canadian long weekend, the US long weekend. So team, in a second here, we're going to open this up to some questions, and my teammate's going to make it available. But I think you need to take some comfort out there. We want to help. And sometimes just understanding you're not the only one feeling this stress is helpful. So I think we've all been here, but I'm going to just take a pause here. Sandro, any ideas on how we help with this? The level of stress is a 7 out of 10 in the quietest week of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of it is I was flashing my Python here. Uh, part, part of it
Thank you for
is
that, by the way. We all
yeah.
need goals to strive for.
My hypothesis, again, I'm not an educator, but a practitioner, a proud practitioner, I will say. Um, what was originally, I'm thinking back 16 months ago, we were at our fight and weight. Everybody was kind of putting numbers up on the board like they were going out of style. This was easy, loving it. We faced into a very different state in what was initially kind of anxiety around health and wellness, for good reason. Like there's a virus, a pandemic taking the world by storm. Um, then as time goes on, what we have experienced, and again, there is ample evidence of, this, I guess for lack of a better term, it's being described as a state of languishing, which is, we're kind of getting used to operating in this virtual, low to no touch space. Some of us are still, resistant to the reality that we're never going back. We're never going back to the way things were. And maybe we actually don't want that, because I think we're finding ways to actually adopt and thrive and, amp up our productivity and our effectiveness with better, work-life balance. It's all by way of saying is, part of it I think has been, driven by just this kind of languishing effect. And so, to your question, well, what are some of the things we can do about it? Well, first of all is, what I'm incredibly proud of is the fact that the association represents, and this is something I thought a lot about was, our higher purpose as an association is to enrich the lives of sales professionals, full stop. I don't care if you're a member, I don't care if you're in the event that you have somehow connected a client or prospect or a customer with problem solved, congratulations, you're one of us. So whether you're a member or not, we stand up for your success. And but what occurred to me is that that's not the association's sole responsibility. In fact, it's impossible for the associate. We're just a band of like really passionate, people trying to serve our membership. Really, this is not a solo act. This is an opportunity for us as a collective, right, to lock arms. And by doing so, we lighten the load. Like, not like it's not like massive problem solved, but we lighten the load a little bit. And whether it's this sense of belonging that is lost, particularly in this kind of virtual, digital space where we're becoming like highly productive, but at the same time, as human beings, that thread, that fabric that pulls us together has been challenged. And so the belonging that we can offer in terms of, understanding like-minded professionals with the same kind of challenges and worries and opportunities, that sense of belonging, I think, is massive. So my point is this: it's the association is working hard to enrich the lives of sales professionals. That only happens when we together work to enrich the lives of sales professionals. Mentorship, contribution to something greater than yourself, leading the way as exemplars, as the rock stars of our industry, and inspiring others to follow suit. Like, I'm going to stop there because I could go on, and we don't have that kind of time.
Boy, and thank you, Neil, for sharing. You can take the screen share off now, sir. By the way, Sandro, talk about inspirational. So folks out there, this is what we need, because I was actually getting excited and inspired about it as well. Our opinion, my opinion on one of the challenges I think that's out there today is, I think, first of all, outside of, the challenges all human beings are experiencing, let's just park those. I think it's very stressful trying to do something you don't know how to do. And so we all have to jump outside a comfort zone. I'll use an example. The first time you speak at your friend's wedding and there's 500 people there, not something many of us have done. So the first time you get up there, it doesn't feel very good. Okay, it's a tough thing to do. But what I'm seeing too much of in professional sales today is because recruiting so hard, we maybe recruit the wrong people into the profession. We get them on the team, and okay, here's some clients, get out there, make some calls, and someone has no idea what they're doing. So they don't know really what our product is or our company, what we can do. They have no idea who they're speaking to. They have no business acumen to understand what are the responsibilities of somebody who's the head of finance. and they have actual no process to execute it. So in the absence of those three things, anything good that happens to you is just an unrelated event. It's an accident. And when you're new to a job, you have all this energy and drive and enthusiasm, and you burn it up, just trying to grab the courage to do something you have been ill-trained and you're ill-equipped to execute on. And you just get fatigued from it. And so then you're doing that every day. If you haven't had proper training and you're not getting current coaching, you're 8 months into a job, you're 12 months into the job. And the same time, you just have no game plan and you have no sense of control. And all of us know if you don't have sense of control of something, it feels stressful. That's why the last 18 months has felt so stressful to all of us. So those would be those things, Sandro. That's why I think, I think there's this kind of common sense revolution taking place in sales.
Yes.
I really believe and that, I'm a simple guy, so we're kind of saying that one of the common sense things to everybody out there is you need to get training and education on doing this. And by the way, after today, at the end, in a few minutes, we'll share how you connect in with the CPSA. But if your company's not giving you training, coaching, development, give yourself a chance. You have to connect in. And these are not the kind of economics that are preventative for a single person. We could all find the money to join the CPSA to learn from peers. But, read a book. Internet platitudes, an internet post is not going to help you. Okay. You need the foundational stuff to learn how to sell professionally. Start with something like the CPSA. That's why it's such an opportunity. Connect in. By the way, there's a lot of free content in there to learn from as well. So try and participate, but give yourself a chance. The second common sense revolution, if you're in professional sales out there today, in the US today, the average company spends about $1,500 US on training. They'll spend 20% more training salespeople than any other business function. To stay current, your company needs to be making that investment in you. Join a company that will invest in you. Now you've got to contribute back and you've got to actually be growth oriented and want to learn and develop. But trust me, the learning and development will never end. I'm still learning and developing this trade, which is so challenging and difficult. Hey, Sandro, we'll in a 2 or 3 minutes, we'll talk about how people connect with the CPSA, but tell me a little bit more about what the CPSA does in terms of certification. If I'm a young salesperson or I'm a mature sales leader looking to elevate, what's the program look like to get certified with the CPSA?
Yeah, just picking up where you left off in terms of making the investment yourself. Reflecting on the research. So despite the fact that 3/4 of Canadian organizations have intentions to grow at a high growth clip, 4 in 10 sales professionals have had more than 1 hour of development in the last year. Now, that's a problem. It's a bigger problem when the field of play has changed as dramatically as it has. I mean, there's been seismic shifts. We talked a little bit about, the reweighting or the balancing of buyer preferences versus selling processes, methods,
yes.
technologies.
Yeah.
We've talked about, some of the challenges of, performing as a top performing sales professional in this kind of hybrid virtual environment. Talked about a number of the headwinds, if you will. It really comes down to how well equipped are we to deal with those changes and challenges and actually flip them into opportunities that actually distinguish us as top performing professionals, right? So not only from a recognition perspective, but just numbers on the board, right? And when I think about the basic, hierarchy of needs as human beings, right? Safety, security, job opportunity, job security, promotions, recognition, not only from your employers, but also from peers. Yeah. That's all massively important. Getting on that track is about retooling, right? Equipping yourself to be exceptional in the new economy. The association helps with that. In our role primarily is we do create some content, and there's some amazing kind of online digital self-serve guided, camps revenue camps, if you will. But more importantly is our partnerships with folks like Mark. I saw a comment, Mark should write a book. I fully agree. I think you maybe have. If you haven't, you should. Connecting with like top performing, recognized educators like Mark in then helping, we help in terms of, content delivery, but also in terms of developing the playbooks on how to actually hit the right kinds of skills and behaviors. We do this with our sales competency framework. Yes. This was an effort that was jointly, produced and created with support from the Government of Canada, recognizing that the catalyst to economic growth and our competitiveness on the global scale really will come down to, are we equipping the world's most important business discipline, the practitioners within, to be the best domestically, but also to be the best globally. And so that sales competency framework really is the roadmap on the skills and behaviors required to achieve not only top performance and success in your craft, in your role, but also in terms of earning your designation, right? The seal of excellence that's recognized not only by your employer, but also by your peers and the community overall. So the designation, whether it's certified sales associate, certified sales professional, or like Mark and I, certified sales leaders, like these really are, the seals of excellence in our craft. And so we help propel professionals along their learning journey and pathway with relevant skills, research, resources, and educators.
Fantastic, Sandro. So many great things to touch on there. So first of all, gang, if you're a CEO or a sales leader, we won't get into it today, but your chances of recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and onboarding the right person, the chances are shockingly low. Your chances are so low, it's unreal. Our guest from a couple of weeks back was a professor from Harvard named Frank Sapides, who's done nothing but research and sales for 30 or 40 years. And he's come back and he said, across every piece of research he's ever seen, it's a coin toss. So I just think that's unbelievable in terms of how difficult it is to do. Then you start to think of the CPSA. So the CPSA, which says, hey, listen, to certify somebody, we want to think about experience. We want to think about formal education, with the chosen profession. And then there's some assessment of that. So maybe an exam is written or something of that nature. If you look at those things, someone's been through that, you're putting the odds in your favor. And then think of someone who's gone through the trouble of doing that. They have growth orientation. Great book by Carol Dweck about the mindset of success, orientation, but as opposed to the fixed orientation. We'll wave the Canadian flag for just a second here. We have a lot of our pals from the US on the line here today as well. But Canada is not the only country that's actually tried to elevate this to the profession. So fantastic read, if you haven't read this, by Philip Squire from the UK. Selling Transformed. The core premise is one, hey, trying to align your value system with your buyers to stand out from the crowd. But he's actually been one of the drivers of actually turning this into a profession in the UK. And he makes some great points, but it's actually going for it's a formal charter that you got to get charter status. And he brings up a point that purchasing was identified as a formal charter and a profession like 20 years ago. Yet the other side of the table, the salesperson, had never been done so until he did it. That last point I'm going to touch on, Sandro, I love so much. You said, your sales program is the point of differentiation. There's that quote from Peter Thiel in his book, 0 to 1, where he says, sales and distribution by itself can create a monopoly even with no product differentiation. Selling better matters. This is actually how you compete. Oh, Sandro, there's no question you and I could talk for hours about this, but we actually don't have that luxury today. So team, first of all, in the chat feature, my great teammate, Neil, is going to send you a link to get more information regarding the CPSA, where you go to get more information regarding the CPA. And thank you, Neil. Sandro, just for some of our folks who are going to replay this on LinkedIn or replay this on Facebook, where would somebody go to find more information about the Canadian Professional Sales Association?
We're going to keep this massively simple, cpsa.com, cpsa.com. And in addition to that, in the event that you're so inclined, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place, but on LinkedIn, easy to find, but CPSA, and we will certainly be pleased to help you with whatever you're working on.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sending that, Neil. So Neil, I'm going to ask you one last favor, sir.
There it is.
Could you please, and thank you, could you put up Mentimeter one more time? And let's just do, team, a quick round table for Sandro and I, kind of a lightning round. Any quick questions that you want to ask Sandro, just while you've got access to him for the next 5 minutes? Okay. And Sandro, just while we're teeing these up, one of the questions I've got, given everything that goes on, how do you start your day to put yourself in the right mindset, given the stress that all of us are under these days?
That's funny. It's not funny, but it's just because we talked about this before we kicked off the webinar. I have a hard time thinking when I don't start the day with some good suffering on my bike. I absolutely love just getting the flywheel spinning, and it's almost like moving meditation. So I usually get a good hard ride because I'm a cycling nut, an avid cyclist. And at the same time, shortly thereafter, I'll spend 10 to 20 minutes just with some quieting the mind. I got a lot of monkeys going on up there, and so I spend some time with meditation just to kind of get me right and get the day started off on the road.
Oh, fantastic. And so quick question here, does the CPSA have a job posting service? Is there a job posting service?
That's actually something that's in development right now. And so we're actually developing an exchange, if you will. And so the exchange will actually operate as a digital marketplace where educators, both the academic, like universities and colleges, and private training, corporate training organizations will contribute and also directly connect practitioners, both those seeking, so students, but also current professionals seeking opportunities, and then with the association. So that's something that actually that's being developed as we speak.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sandro. I think there's a really, really couple of great questions here. One is, what advice can you give an older, unemployed professional salesperson? And so first of all, thank you for the question. And one of the things I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge is, as you move up the scale of your career, at some point in time, all of us have been looking for that next adventure. So it's not always the nicest position to be in, but my experience is anyone who's achieved anything meaningful has been in that boat at some point in time. I think the advice to someone who's more mature versus someone who's less mature, same advice. First of all, growth orientation, continue learning. It's amazing. Chances are there's some aspect of your life where you already have the growth orientation, might be a hobby. Sandro, with his cycling, he's a super high-end cycler. That didn't come without a lot of research and hard work and sweat, and then measurement and progress. So now he applies that to other stages of his life and knows that it can continue to evolve. Growth orientation, and a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, easy read. That's what I would suggest for anybody to trigger that learning, because all we want is sales leaders. What we want are people on our team with growth orientation who want to continue to evolve and develop, because as Sandro said, everything changes so much. The buying process has changed so much. If we can't adapt, we've got a problem.
Hey, Mark, well said. There's really nothing more I would add other than I think just remember you're never walking alone. Yeah. So whether you're employed, unemployed, rest assured that there's others in your network, both your existing network or your expanded network. If you think about, the hundreds of thousands of practitioners that are in your shoes. And so, I think one of the things that we can never, look too far past is the fact that our community, in most cases, is very willing to help and connect and be part of the solution, right? To help support kind of finding that next role. So
Thank you. What a great, great point. And I'm sure that's super helpful. Two quick ones here. If you're a recent hire and you're not feeling that you're getting the guidance you were promised, is it worth voicing your opinion to your manager or just finding a job with better values that may fit you personally? Any comments on that, Sandro?
my reaction would be to express, your concern. Yeah, in the event that, there's something that will help you kind of regain that confidence and that support that is absolutely, required, particularly in early days. So again, my reaction would be that you probably want to express that.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's great feedback. And just to minor build with Sandra would be just say, always remember, when you're sitting down with someone, try and have the empathy of understand their point of view. So, hey, Sandro, if you're my boss, let me get really clear on what are your goals and your objectives and how do I become a great contributing member of your team? Because I want to be the best I can be to help you achieve your goals. So I start there, then connecting in, my development program to help you achieve what you need is probably a good starting point.
Mark, that inspires me just to add one more piece there is that's more likely to occur nowadays than ever before, only because of the disconnected nature in which we are doing our work. So as a sales leader, there are blind spots now that just weren't there before. And so it might not be a bad idea for our sales leaders is to actually proactively ensure pulsing, just checking in with our team, particularly in the early days, because, again, the research shows that once we kind of survive that first year, that the stickiness and the likelihood of success kind of goes up greatly, particularly if you're equipping your team, with skills and with, the kind of guidance around the behaviors for top performance and success.
That's amazing.
But proactive.
Great, boy, great stuff, Sandro. Last quick question. Given the low odds of hiring a great salesperson, in addition to the CPSA, is there any recommended best books or resources to start with?
That one, let me defer to Mark. You're well read in terms of recruiting and the importance of getting it right.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Sandro. My quick one, gang, would be a book called Who by a guy named Jeff Smart. Who by a guy named Jeff Smart. And Who is actually a great sort of coaching book gives you a process, questions, strategy for hiring any role in your company. But I think it's particularly helpful for salespeople. And one minor add I like to Who is in your second interview with a professional salesperson, give them the floor for the first 15 minutes to present their game plan for onboarding into your company and ramping up into value. And so you tell them in advance, if they win the second interview, you send them an email saying, listen, we're going to give you the floor in the first 15 minutes. We'd like you to share your game plan for ramping up and getting to the point where you can make a contribution to the company. And it gives you three things. It gives you, first of all, we're going to see how they try and figure out how to build this plan, something they've never thought of before, so you can figure out how they think. Secondly, we're going to figure out how much work did they put into it, because it's your first assignment for them. Are they going to get up and ad lib it? Are they going to put some work into it? And then third, you get a chance to sort of experience how they present an idea. Are they persuasive? So that would be just a couple of quick recommendations. And my teammate, if anybody needs, a list of our favorite books, you can chat us. And my great teammate, Neil, will send you a list of our favorite books, and Who by Jeff Smart is in there. Hey, thanks for this share, Neil.
Love that name. Great authors.
Yeah, great offers. So listen, Sandro, I just want to say on behalf of the entire In the Funnel team, thank you so much for joining. Man, I learned something every time I chat with you. This was awesome.
Terrific, Mark. Thank you so much for making this happen. And again, I appreciate it. And once again, just rest assured the Canadian Professional Sales Association stands at the ready to help you with skills development, community, privileges, and benefits, and look forward to connecting.
Skills development community, we all need that. On behalf of In the Funnel folks out there, we just want to we're wishing that all of you are coping as well as can be expected during these unique times. We're sending good vibes to everybody so that we can all emerge stronger from these unique times. Thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you again.
See you, Sandro. Thanks so much.
See you. Be good.
Bye-bye.